I like how close that is. The Christological corollary was clear to Theodotus and his followers. If the creator God is the only God, then Christ himself could not be God. If Christ were also God, then there would be two gods, but there is only one. And so Christ was not a divine being. He was a human from beginning to end. When the Theodosians recalled the events of Jesus' life, they remembered his birth as the result of the sexual union of Mary and Joseph. He was fully human and only human. At his baptism, God sent his spirit upon him in the form of a dove to empower him for his ministry. At this point, God adopted Jesus to be his son. Since Jesus was adopted as God's son, he was not actually divine, any more than the kings of Israel, such as David or Solomon, were. Jesus, like them, was a human being to whom God showed special favor. It was the Spirit working through Jesus that allowed him to do his great miracles and deliver his spectacular teachings. In particular, being God's anointed meant that Jesus had to fulfill a mission of dying for the sake of others. He did so in obedience to the divine command, and so God raised him from the dead. But he was, and always had been, fully and only human. Orthodox church fathers strenuously objected to this view. They thought of Jesus as a human, yes, but also as divine. If he were not God, how could he fully mediate God's will to earth, or mediate God's will to earth? If he were merely human, he could not have died as the Son of God for the sins of the world. He must then have been both human and divine. Later memories of Jesus. After a century after both Marcion and the Theodosians had their short time in the sun, it came to be thought throughout most of Christendom that each of their views of Jesus was completely right about one thing and completely wrong about another. The Marcionites were right that Jesus was God. They were wrong that he was not human. The Theodosians were right that Jesus was human. They were wrong that he was not God. The consensus view emerged that he was human and divine at the same time. Eventually, it came to be thought that he was not half of God and half of human. He was fully both things at one and the same time. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Christians will just accept whatever nonsense you throw at them. As long as you throw Jesus in there, they're like, fuck it. Yeah, that makes sense. Ridiculousness. Anyway. Oh shit, man, I'm fucking up. Dropping the blunt and shit. The first official church meeting called to debate theological issues concerning the nature of Jesus was the famous Council of Nicaea, a gathering of bishops from around the then Christian world. Contrary to what you sometimes read in such inestimable authorities as the Da Vinci Code, for example, everyone at the council already wholeheartedly agreed that Christ was both God and human. But how could he be God if God was God and there was only one God? Was Christ a secondary divinity, subordinate to God the Father and created by him at some point in eternity past? Or instead, was he fully equal with God the Father in every way and coexistent with him with no beginning in time? These were the two leading options. In the end, it was the latter view that won the day at the council and eventually became the orthodox, dominant view of the church at large. It should be obvious that anyone who thinks Jesus was God in the flesh, fully equal for all time with the Father, but become a flesh and blood human, will remember Jesus' life differently from someone who thinks that he was human and only human, but empowered by God, or that he was divine and only divine in merely the appearance of humanity. For the bishops who agreed to the Creed of Nicaea, Jesus was indeed God in the flesh. The life and teachings of Jesus, his death and resurrection, were obviously those of a human, but not of a mere mortal. They were the works of a man who was the God-man. As a result, these bishops and their followers no longer remembered aspects of Jesus' life that would have made him unmistakably fallible and human like the rest of us. aspects of his life that would have been known, say, by his original family and friends, and even the later disciples. These earthly associates of Jesus either did not pass along such information, or they did so. Or if they did so, it was eventually lost in the tradition. The memory of Jesus as an eternal God walking as a man on the earth was thus affected by the theological investments of a later day. It is very different from the memory of Jesus in any of the first and second century authors I have mentioned in this chapter and the one preceding. Then again, all these earlier views are also different from one another. We've already seen the reason. In no small measure, it is because of the nature of memory. Memory is not simply information and experiences from an earlier time. It is also at least as much about what is happening now. How we remember the past is intricately connected with what we are experiencing in the present. In a very real sense, we do not have any direct, unmediated access to the past. We have access to it in our minds, only through the fallible and malleable process of memory. In conclusion, like most authors, I get a lot of email from people who have read my books. I find one of the comments I repeatedly receive somewhat disheartening. It involves the importance of memory. To explain the comment, I need to provide a bit of background. Most of my professional career as a teacher, researcher, lecturer, and writer is centered around historical issues and concerns. Whenever I discuss the New Testament from a historical perspective, as I frequently do, I refer to the problems of our sources. The Gospels were written decades after Jesus' death by people who were not eyewitnesses and had probably never laid eyes on an eyewitness. They are filled with discrepancies and contradictions. They represent different perspectives on what Jesus said and did. For that reason, to know what actually happened in Jesus' life, we have to apply rigorous historical criteria to these sources to reconstruct historical realities from later distorted memories. I present these views because at heart, I'm a historian interested in seeing what we can know about the past. I've presented some such views here in this book, but my focus in this book has been on memory, including, of course, distorted memories of Jesus' life, but also memories that are closely related to history. For example, some of the gist memories found throughout the Gospels. Memory is not only faulty, most of the time it's pretty good. So too with the memories of Jesus. We can know a good deal about Jesus' historical life based on what our sources say. Moreover, I have tried to emphasize that the study of memory is not at all limited to what comes to be distorted over time. It is possible to engage in memory history to see how recollections of Jesus can help us understand the people who were remembering him in one way or the other. Why Mark, John, or Thomas recalled Jesus the way they did. How their present circumstances can explain their memories of the past. The comment I sometimes get from readers that I find disheartening is this. They often tell me that if there is something in the Gospels that is not historical, then it cannot be true in any respect. And if it is not true, then it is not worth reading. My sense is that many readers will find it puzzling that I find this view disheartening, but I do. It is true that to do the work of the historian requires one to be extremely critical about the sources of information available from and about the past. Some readers seem to think this approach to sources is taken only by atheistic, hard-headed, liberal historians with anti-supernaturalist biases who are out to destroy religion. But in fact, it is the approach all historians take to all of their materials. The reason some readers find this approach to the Gospels objectionable is that they simply aren't accustomed to dealing with the Bible as history. But even though I do deal with the Bible as a historian, I do not personally think that is the only way to deal with the Bible, and I find it unsettling when readers think that once the Gospels are shown to have discrepancies, implausibilities, and historical mistakes, that we should just get rid of them and move on to other things. I do understand that Christianity is widely seen as a historical religion, and that if there are historical problems with Christianity, then Christianity has problems. I understand that very well indeed, but in my judgment, there is no more to Christianity than history. There is more to Christianity than history, and there is more to life and meaning and truth than the question of whether this, that, or the other thing happened in the way some ancient text says it did. In my view, the early Christian Gospels are so much more than historical sources. They are memories of early Christians about the one they considered to be the most important person ever to walk the planet. Yes, these memories can be recognized as distorted when seen from the perspective of historical reality. But, at least for me, that doesn't rob them of their value. It simply makes them memories. All memories are distorted. And yes, the New Testament memories are all different from one another in one way or another. But that doesn't mean that we should throw them all away because they are not completely trustworthy. Everyone's memories, even of the same event, will be different from everyone else's. That's just how memory works. And yes, again, these memories have all been shaped by the lives, histories, and concerns of the people who recorded them, so that the present of these authors affected what they remembered about the past and how they remembered it. But that doesn't mean that we should just go on to read other books instead. All memories of the past are chosen and shaped by the present. At the end of the day, I find it troubling that so many people think that history is the only thing that matters. For them, if something didn't happen, if it isn't true in any sense, for them, if something didn't happen, then it isn't true in any sense. Really? Do we actually live our lives that way? How can we? Do we really spend our lives finding meaning only in the brute facts of what happened before and in nothing else? Think about the things that matter to us: our families, friends, work, hobbies, religion, philosophy, country, novels, poetry, music, good food, and good drink. Do we really think that the brute facts about the past are the only things that matter? To pick only one of these examples, one far removed from the New Testament to make my point, is literature unimportant because it does not deal with the brute facts of history? Is Dickens's great novel, David Copperfield, of no value because its main character didn't actually live? Well, that's different, you say, because it's fiction. Yes, indeed, it is fiction, and fiction can be life-transforming because it is full of meaning, even though it never happened. Or consider further, can historical discoveries undermine the power of great literature? Petunia, do you fucking mind? Thank you. Where the fuck was I? Does the earth-shattering force of King Lear evaporate if it can be historically proved that someone other than Shakespeare wrote it? Does Dover Beach really fail to grip us with its powerful pathos if we learned these were not actually the author's thoughts the last time he was looking out over the English Channel? Literature speaks to us quite apart from the facts of history. So does music, so does sculpture, so do all the arts. The Gospels are not simply historical records about the past, they are also works of art. In addition, they are written forms of memory. The truth is that most of us deeply cherish our memories of our childhood, of our parents, of our friends, of our romantic relationships, of our accomplishments, of our travels, our pleasures, our millions of experiences. Other memories, of course, are terribly wrenching memories of pain or suffering, of misunderstandings or failed relationships or financial strain, violence, lost loved ones, or yet millions of other experiences. When we reflect on our past lives, when we remember all that has happened to us, all the people we have known, all the things we have seen, all the places we have visited, all the experiences we have had, we do not decide before pondering the memory to fact check our recall to make sure that we have the brute facts in place. Our lives are not spent establishing the past as it really happened. They are spent calling it back to mind. When we do so, our memories may be frail and faulty and even false, but they are how we remember. And that is how we live our lives, with these memories. If someone tells us that something happened to us differently from how we remember it, we may change how we think about it. But that's not usually what happens. More often, we simply say we don't remember it that way, and we stick to our memories. If we do shift what we think about our remembered past, we don't jettison our memories, but transform them. We live not only with our own memories, but also with the memories of others. We share our lives. Others share their lives with us. The only way to share a life outside of that non-existent nanosecond of the present is to share a life of memory. Our presents are affected by these pasts, both our own and those of others. just as these pasts are molded by our presents, and our reflections about the future are molded by both. Living life is never a matter of isolation from either our pasts or the pasts of others. The living and sharing of memories are what makes up most of our lives. The Gospels are shared memories of the past. Yes, they can be scrutinized by historians who want to get a better sense of what actually happened in the life of Jesus. That's what I do for a living. But if they were only that, they would be dry, banal, and frankly, rather uninteresting to anyone except people with rather peculiar antiquarian interests. The Gospels are more than historical sources. They are deeply rooted in profound memories of a man, memories that ended up transforming the entire world. It is easy to make the argument that the historical Jesus did not transform the world. He does not transform the world today. You may wonder how that could possibly be if Christianity became the religion of the West. Well, look at it this way. There are 2 billion people today who are committed to the memory of Jesus. How many of those 2 billion have what I, as a historian, would consider to be a historically accurate recollection of the basic facts of Jesus's real life and ministry? Would you say some thousands? It's a tiny fraction. The historical Jesus did not make history. The remembered Jesus did. For me as a historian, it goes without saying that we should pay close attention to what can be learned about the historical Jesus, but we should not neglect the remembered Jesus. It doesn't matter if Jesus really delivered the Sermon on the Mount the way it's described in Matthew 5 through 7. It matters to me historically, but if Jesus didn't deliver the sermon, would it be any less powerful? Not in the least. It is, and in my view, deserves to be one of the greatest accounts of ethical teaching in the history of the planet. Does it matter if Jesus really healed the sick, cast out demons, and raised the dead? Does it matter if he himself was raised from the dead? To me, as a historian, it does. But if these stories are not historically accurate, does that rob them of their literary power? Not in my books. They are terrifically moving accounts. Understanding what they are trying to say means understanding some of the most uplifting and influential literature the world has ever seen. Does it matter if Jesus considered himself to be God on earth? As a historian, it matters to me a great deal. But if he didn't, and I think he didn't, the fact that he was remembered this way by later followers is terrifically important. Without the memory of Jesus, the faith founded on him would never have taken off. The Roman Empire would not have abandoned paganism, and the history of our world would have transpired in ways that are unimaginably different. History was changed, not because of brute facts, but because of memory. Memory can certainly be studied to see where it is accurate and where it is frail, faulty, or even false. It should be studied that way. It needs to be studied that way. I spend most of my life studying it that way. But it should also be studied in a way that appreciates its inherent significance and power. Memory is what gives meaning to our lives, and not only to our own personal lives, but to the lives of everyone who has ever lived on this planet. Without it, we couldn't exist as social groups or function as individuals. Memory obviously deserves to be studied in its own right, not only to see what it preserves accurately about the past, but also to see what it can say about those who have it and share it. Christian memory is particularly and uniquely important. Christian memory transformed our world. Christian memory brought about a revolution in the history of Western civilization. Christian memory continues to influence billions of lives in our world today. Ultimately, of course, Christian memory goes back to the earliest memories of Jesus. These too need to be studied for what they can tell us about the historical person who stands behind the memory. But they should also be studied for what they reveal about those who came in his wake, who remembered him and passed along their memories to those of us living today. Oh, that's the end. We're at the acknowledgements now. And who the fuck reads the acknowledgements? Like, before this book ranges over so many fields, I am unusually indebted to colleagues with significant experience who can read all of parts of it to let me know where I botched it, either making mistakes or failing to provide much needed nuance. One always hopes that all the problems have been taken care of. If not, it's entirely my fault. I'm especially grateful to Daniel Schachter, William R. Keenan Jr., professor and former chair of the Department of Psychology at Harvard University. He's one of the premier psychologists of memory in our day, arguably the leading expert in the world on the phenomenon of false memory. His books and articles have made a large impact on my thinking from the very beginning of my research. Among his many other fine qualities, Professor Schachter is a one-time Tar Heel. He did his undergraduate degree at the University of North Carolina, where I now teach. Professor Schachter graciously agreed to read the manuscript of this book to tell me if and how I went astray. I am deeply in his debt. I was fortunate to have two New Testament scholars who have worked extensively in the field of collective memory read the manuscript and make very useful comments. Zebra Crook of Carleton University and Chris Keith of St. Mary's University. They both provided significant assistance on matters both major and minor, and I'm greatly appreciative. In addition, I asked my good friend and local expert in all things gospel, Mark Goodacre of Crosstown rival Duke, to work over a draft for embarrassing errors, misstatements, and general infelicities. That's an extra interesting word. He was especially generous and helpful in his numerous insights. Three of my colleagues at UNC read portions of the book that deal with their field of expertise, and I feel very much appreciative for their willingness to help out a colleague in need. And that would be William Barney in the Department of History and Jody Magnas and Evyatar Marienberg, both in my own Department of Religious Studies. May their tribes increase. I'm also grateful to see to three of my graduate students at UNC who are working on various aspects of New Testament and early Christian studies and who provided me with considerable research assistance for the project. Luke Drake, Shaylee Patel, and Travis Proctor. Any professor in the field will be lucky to have student scholars such as these. I decided to solicit yet other readers for the book, and in doing so have done something rather unusual. This one will take a bit of explaining. First, the background. I started the Bart Ehrman blog just over 3 years ago. The blog covers all the areas of my expertise: the New Testament, the historical Jesus, the writings of Paul, the early Christian Apocrypha, the Apostolic Fathers, the manuscript tradition of the early Christian writings, and, well, just about everything else related to the history and literature of early Christianity. I post about 1,000 words a day on the blog, 5 to 6 times a week. The only hitch is that to read my posts, a person has to join the blog, and to join costs money, but not much. I do the blog and charge the money not to line my own pockets, but to raise funds for those in need. Every penny goes to charities, 2 local to me, 2 international, that deal with hunger and homelessness. The blog keeps growing, as do the monies we raise through it. This past year, we raised over $110,000. I'm hoping to do significantly better this year. For those interested in joining, it is at www.ehrmanblog.org. As I was finishing this book, I decided to try something out in the ordinary. I would offer readers of the blog the right to read the book and make comments on it prior to publication in exchange for a donation of a set amount. Several readers took me up on it. I provided them with the manuscript, they read it, they made remarks, and I took the remarks seriously in making my final versions. I'm deeply thankful for these contributions and readers. They are Steve and Gabby Walraith, Eric Brown, James and Jeremy Granada, Steve Leonard, Greg Matthews, Ronald Tasca, and my 2 good friends and recent traveling companions, Gabriella Larangiera and Bill Sutherland. I am especially in the debt of my new editor at Harper One, Michael Maudlin, there it is, who read the manuscript several times with extraordinary care and made extremely insightful and helpful comments on it. The book is much improved as a result. Finally, my friend, one-time editor and low literary agent, Roger Freet, read the entire manuscript and provided me with savvy comments on style and substance. This is the 7th book we've done together, 6 while he was an editor for Harper One. We both dream of many more to come. I'm very much in his debt, and someday may even think about paying it off. The end. And if you was wondering, that was fucking Jesus before the Gospels. That light is not my friend right now. By Bart Ehrman. And it's not that big a book. It's only like... Oh, I'm in the notes section. Let me get back to where it ended. If you include the acknowledgements, which I read, then it's only 299 pages. So it's not that bad. You know what I mean? But if you don't read the acknowledgements and you just stop at like where he was done at, then it's 295 pages. Again, not that bad. Like most of the books I read are like 200 to 500 pages, you know, something like that. But this is probably like the third or fourth book I've read by Bart Ehrman. You know, he's like the leading historian on all things New Testament, Old Testament, Jesus, so on and so forth. And so this was pretty decent. But I got this one by him. This is misquoting, or I'm sorry, this is Jesus Before the Gospels. I also read by him misquoting Jesus. I've read that one like 3 times already. Jesus Before the Gospels. Something about Heaven and Hell. I think that was the other one. Heaven and Hell by Bart Ehrman. And a couple others. I don't fucking know. So, yeah. So when anyone asks me about Jesus, my opinion is, given everything that I've read from Bart Ehrman, then I would say, yeah, sure, that motherfucker existed. At one point, as a human being, this man lived once. All right. He may have even been crucified. I don't give a shit about that. None of that matters. None of that's important, even. Like, who gives a fuck? Some dude lived at some time and was killed. Whatever. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? It's like, but I will not ever concede to the point that he was somehow divine or could do miracles. And by miracles, I mean regularly breaking the laws of physics, you know what I mean, in order to do something banal. I'm just saying. There's no evidence for any of that. None at all whatsoever. So I refuse. I refuse to believe something I'm not convinced of. And I'm just not convinced of it. That's the truth of the matter. Okay. I always acquiesce to the facts. Okay. And it appears that the facts would suggest that the historical, and as he puts it, and also the remembered Jesus was a real person. So I will give you that. Okay. Because I will believe whatever the evidence suggests, as long as the evidence for that proposition substantiates that proposition. And it seems to be at least enough overwhelming evidence, okay, in the direction of Jesus existed at one point in history. There's no evidence at all to suggest that he was divine, that he fucking came back after being dead, all right? Or that he was somehow a god, or none of that. Like, there's no evidence for any of that. So I don't believe that shit. It's not that I don't want to believe it. I don't fucking care. It happened or it didn't happen. I don't give a shit. What the fuck do I care if he did all that shit? So what? But the evidence doesn't suggest that. In fact, all the evidence we have suggests that none of that is true. Like, none of it, you know. Sure, some dude lived. That's like in 2,000 years, if motherfucker were like, no, David Koresh lived. We got like evidence that motherfucker lived. He is the reincarnated Jesus. Everyone knows it, you know. And it's like, what? I will concede that David Koresh lived. Okay. I will give you that. Sure. I even remember watching the news when it happened, when his compound in Texas was fucking, you know what I mean? Like, I remember that shit. But that don't mean he's fucking, what? He's divine now and shit? Like, what stories would be made up about David Koresh in 2,000 years? Followers of the fucking, what was it? I'm trying to think of the name of the church that he started. They were called the fucking Branch Davidians. He didn't start it, but he ended up becoming like a leader of it once the original member died. I think it was something like, it was like a woman or whatever. And then like her son was going to take over, or at least he thought he was. But like David was more like persuasive or some shit. I don't fucking know. Either way, there was a big problem. The two tried to kill each other or whatever. But or at least the son tried to kill David. I don't know. That motherfucker, I think, ended up getting locked up or some shit. But in the end, David ended up being the one in charge of the fucking Branch Davidians, and then that's pretty much all we know about it. You know, like once we were all introduced to them in the world through the news, it was just this dude who was claiming to be like Jesus or some shit, and he got all these followers in this compound and somewhere in somewhere in Texas. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, it's fucking crazy. But so what are we supposed to do? Like in 2,000 years, when motherfuckers writing about David Koresh, they're like, nah, man, his name was David. David's in the Bible, and all this other bullshit. It's like that to me. That's all it is. It's like he was like an antiquated version of David Koresh, just walking around talking about, bro, I'm God's son. B, you know what I mean? Follow me. Look, check this out. Don't hurt no one else if you don't want no one hurting you. How about that? And they're all like, what? It's like, anywho, I'm just saying, like, I will give it to you but then too, I've always sort of like, well, not always, but for the most part, since I've been like researching this shit, for a while now, I've pretty much accepted that Jesus as a human being lived at one point or another. Okay, I'll get you. I don't give a fuck. That's not anything. Like, that's so what if some dude lived at some point or another and influenced people or whatever. But again, the way he's putting it, it's the memory, it's the remembered Jesus that gets passed down and not the actual historical Jesus. So as far as we know, the actual historical Jesus could have been an asshole. And according to some of the other gospels that didn't make it into the canon, he was sort of a dick, you know. But again, the church fathers who who were choosing which gospels would become the canon version, they were just picking they didn't want to pick the ones that may have suggested that Jesus wasn't all nice and loving, because he was a human being after all, so, and not everyone that you know, even the nicest people will have their moments, you know what I'm saying? And Jesus definitely had his moments. Remember, for instance, there was this time when they were in a boat, him and his disciples or whatever, and it was a storm and everything, and these motherfuckers is tripping, as they should. What the fuck? They ain't got modern technology and they in a fucking boat or whatever. They're in a boat. The boat's all you know what I'm saying? Jesus sleep like a motherfucker. He must have took an Ambien or just got drunk as shit. But this motherfucker is asleep. The storm is just not bothering him. The disciples are tripping. They're like, yo, Jesus, come on, dog. This motherfucker snapped. Man, what the fuck, bro? Why are y'all tripping right now? And then he just hey, storm, knock it the fuck off. And the storm just knocks it the fuck off. And the disciples are like, man, who the fuck is this nigga? This motherfucker controls the sea. He controlled a storm. Who the fuck is dude? Even they was like, what the fuck? So I was like, but he ain't have to be an asshole. Of course they would be they think they about to die. It's a fuck. I get it. I can see why they was terrified. This motherfucker is man, why is y'all tripping? He might have just been mad that they woke him up out of his sleep. Who the fuck wants to be woken out of their sleep impromptu? You know what I mean? So I get it, but it's that made it into the canon. And when I read that shit, I was like, damn, son, why is he tripping on him like that? Why are he snapping? I would understand. You know what I'm saying? I put myself in their shoes. I'm like, bro, we finna die in this bitch. And they're like, man, wake Jesus up. He the captain of the ship, I guess. Jesus, man. He's like, man, what the fuck, son? And he was like, man, the storm, man, we finna die and shit. And he was just like, excuse me. Storm, shut the fuck up. He was like, see, why aren't y'all tripping right now? I don't know if he went back to sleep or not, but I just knew they was both the disciples, man, what the fuck? The motherfucking weather listens to this, man. Who the fuck is dude? So yeah, I'm just saying, I don't believe none of shit. I don't believe none of shit. But I can see why, if even the church fathers were trying to keep a certain depiction of Jesus out of the Bible, maybe, and the fact that part was still in the Bible, maybe it happens so often that it was no way around it. You just had to include this shit. Because Jesus was just always tripping. You saw how he was when he got to Jerusalem. You know what I mean? And this was after the whole, like, there wasn't no fruit on the fig tree incident. You know what I mean? And then they had the disciples looking at themselves again, like, dude is tripping. Like, he know them ain't, like, it's out of season. Why would he think there'd be figs on the tree? He cussing the tree out. Dumb up. I mean, nothing. Like, so he was already hungry, like hangry. He was hungry. That was the reason why he even went to the tree. He thought he saw leaves on it, and he was like, "Oh, bet fig time." And he went over there and was like, "Where the fuck the figs at?" And he was like, "Man, fuck this tree. May fruit never grow from you," or some shit like that. And the disciples like, "Bruh is tripping. Like, it's not in season." That's like me being in the middle of winter, wondering why ain't no strawberries at the grocery store. Bitch, it ain't in season. But then I burn down the grocery store. No one will ever buy fruit from here again. Like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus was tripping. So anyway, so after that whole incident, they finally make it to Jerusalem. He mad as shit. He in there mad as shit, like going the fuck off, like money changers. Like, what the fuck? Flipping over tables and booths and shit, knocking shit off. The funny thing is, where this was taking place was like the size of like 12 football fields or something. It might have been bigger than that, but it was just like, bro, this place is huge. Okay, this ain't no little like bodega or some shit. I don't fucking know, but this ain't no small shit. This is like a big ass, like a coliseum size fucking place, and he just in there wilding out. In the temple, because I mean, he had his reasons, but the reasons didn't really add up. Like when you read it, like when you look at it historically, from a historical perspective. But anywho, I'm just like, yeah, look at him. See, he's unhinged. Jesus is unhinged. Like even in here, like you should read the story. Like in like the first couple chapters, they were talking about Jesus when he was like 5 and shit. Type of shit he was doing when he was a kid. Like to other kids in the neighborhood or whatever, or to his own mom. Like, yeah, that's all I mean. I gotta get these books, man. Like, the historical Jesus is something else. Like, dude be wilding out. I can see why he come from God. Like, because God be wilding out too. Like, nigga, he made humans, okay, according to the Bible in Genesis. He made them in Genesis, first book of the Bible. We don't even make it to Exodus before he already pissed off at humans and like, you know what? You know what? I hate that I even made you motherfuckers. Fuck this shit. You know, yeah. I regret having made humans. Okay. So, you know what? Noah, you and your family, grab 2 of everything, son. Make this boat be. And I'm about to just kill everything. And it's like, damn, son, like, what? Like, all right. And then Moses didn't think, like, why you gotta kill everybody? Like, what the fuck? He like, I'm gonna kill everybody. Fuck it. I'm killing everyone and everything. Plants, I'm mad at plants. Fuck it. I'm mad at fish. Fish pissed me off. You know what I'm saying? I'm mad at fish. I'm mad at humans. I'm mad at that pregnant lady's baby in her belly. Fuck that baby. You know what I'm saying? I'm drowning every motherfucking thing, dog. Fuck it. Fuck it. Right? I did it. I made you motherfuckers. I can kill y'all. Fuck it. Because I'm moral. I'm good. I'm loving. I'm understanding. I'm patient. I'm kind. I'm all the things that y'all say I am, even though I don't exhibit any of those traits. But y'all say I'm that shit. So, yeah, sure. Me drowning everybody's a loving thing. A good thing to do, actually. You know, because if I were to do that today, well, y'all will probably still, yeah, you'll probably still say I'm a good person because you can't help yourself. You fuckers are fucking idiots. Like, but anywho, I know I didn't really talk to nobody in this live right now because that wasn't really what I was going to do. I really just wanted to finish reading this book because I'm about to start making content off the next book I'm about to read. But I mean, what the fuck y'all doing? Daddy B. Lou P. All right, let's read some of these comments. Old Testament stories were insane. Tim, you ain't never lied, son. Them Old Testament stories. The Old Testament stories are the most interesting part of the Bible. Like once you get into the New Testament, it's like, but the Old Testament, it's like, oh damn, wow, like you know what I mean? Unhinged that shit in the Old Testament, just for no reason. But that's why the Old Testament is easier to read because it's just like, what the fuck, you know? But the New Testament is all like, man, the fuck out of here with the New Testament. That's why Christians always want to only reference the New Testament, or they always so quick to never mind the Old Testament. Like, well, we got the new commandment. Well, y'all don't even do that. I don't give a shit. What the fuck? What you telling me there's a new one? Like, oh, we have the new one. We don't go by the old laws of Moses anymore. Jesus brought the new covenant. And it's like, well, you ain't doing that. Like, so what difference do it make? Bring back the old covenant. You wouldn't doing that either. Yeah, I mean, even though Jesus didn't say he was doing away with the law of Moses. Nah, he was like, nah, I didn't come to do away with shit. He said, I ain't come to change a jot or a tittle of shit. I came to fulfill, motherfucker. That's what he said. So I guess you still supposed to fucking obey your mother and father. You know what I'm saying? I guess you still can't work on Saturdays. Yeah, the Sabbath is Saturday, not Sunday. Do some fucking history. Read some history. But yeah, man. I mean, even if it was just to love your neighbor, they can't do that. He was just like, just love your neighbor as yourself or whatever. Okay. And like love Jesus. Like that's it. Like y'all can't even do that. Like that is just 2 things. Not even the 10. Like just 2. Dude, can you do 2? If he was just like, don't even worry about Jesus. All right, I get that's kind of hard to love. Something that you can't really prove exists. But can you at least love your neighbor? A motherfucker you can see. Like these motherfuckers can't even do that. They can't do that. Like I'm convinced no matter what would have been written in the Bible, even if Jesus said, just do this one thing, dog, that Christians couldn't be bothered to do that. How the fuck is shouting vitriol to your opponents in any way loving your neighbor? I mean, yeah, like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how are you laughing at the possibility of my damnation? How is that loving your neighbor? I don't get it. Like, if I knew that my neighbor's wife was about to die in a plane crash or for whatever fucking reason, I don't know how I would know that, but let's just assume I did. And then I just laugh at the dude like, it's over for your wife. You know, it's like, what type of shit is that? But that's the type of shit I get all the time from Christians who are supposed to be humble and meek and mild and like their Jesus, loving their neighbor and turning the other cheek and all that care. No, they can't do none of that shit. You talk shit about their God, they're going to let you have it, buddy. They are going to let you have it. They're going to be like, why don't you shut up? I love the ones where they're like, why don't you pick on someone else's religion? It's like, are you advocating for me shitting on someone else's religion? Why would you do that? What's kind about that? I mean, what's tolerant and loving about that? Why would you recommend? That's like if me talking to my bully, like, why don't you bully someone else? It's like, why bully anyone? Okay, why bully anyone? But it's like, yeah, why not pick on someone else's religion? Ain't nobody else's religion. See, y'all's religion is the bully in America. I love how Christians want to have this fake victim complex that like, oh, we Christians are always being persecuted. Get the fuck out of here. Okay. First of all, y'all got all the clout in America, period. Christian shit on the money, Christian shit in the fucking documents of the like Constitution or no, in the not in the Constitution. But anywho, like, you can't even be a politician unless you accept Jesus or believe in some unsubstantiated deity. You know what I mean? Like, Bible's here, Bible's there. I don't go to the hotel and see a Quran in the motherfucking dresser drawer. It's always a goddamn Bible of some kind. You know what I mean? Or at the hospital. Like, get the fuck out of here. What do you mean? Y'all persecuted. What? You motherfuckers with a church on every fucking block? Like every goddamn corner. I live in a neighborhood right now. It's like 10 churches within like half a mile of each other. Like, what? Why is there so much need for Jesus? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, y'all ain't persecuted, motherfucker. Y'all doing the persecuting. And that's why I'm here shitting on you motherfuckers, because y'all are hypocrites. Okay? Y'all don't give a fuck about what Jesus said. You don't give a fuck about what the Bible says either. Okay? You pick out the bits you like and you never mind, or try to like make some weird apologetic for the ugly shit. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here. It's like, and that's why I be trying to attack the shit. I'm like, because first of all, y'all don't even believe the shit. Half of you haven't even read the fucking Bible. And then even and the ones of you who do, don't follow it. You know what I'm saying? You don't do exactly as Jesus instructed. Okay? All praying in front of people, all showing off. You know what I mean? Buying all these worldly things, even though Jesus said, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth, shit that can rust or be stolen. Instead, store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where it can't rust or be stolen, motherfucker. But do you see Christians doing that? Fuck no. Christians got all the shit. Just flip through, just put in Holy Bible or Christians or some shit in the search in YouTube and watch how much shit Christians try to sell your ass. You know what I'm saying? They need some money. You know what I mean? They want you to follow and subscribe and comment because it's all about me. They don't give a fuck about no fucking Jesus. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here. These Christians are so full of shit. Jesus was like, you don't need shit. How you gonna be rich and follow me? But look at the houses some of these Christians live in and tell me they ain't rich. You know what I mean? But Jesus said, you can't fucking be rich. Fuck you mean? He was like, you gotta be poor like me, bitch, I'm poor. Just like he told the one dude, when the one dude was like, hey, yo, Jesus, what I gotta do to get in heaven or get saved? He's like, man, you gotta do this shit. And dude was like, I'm already doing that shit. What else you want me to do? And Jesus was like, all right, well, shit, sell all your shit and give the proceeds to the poor and then follow me. In fact, that's the only way you can follow me. And dude was like, I'm all good, dog. I'm going to just, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to holler back, and then left, dropped his head in shame and left. Because he knew he wasn't about to do that shit. Just like you Christians ain't about to do that shit. You ain't about to give up shit. You ain't about to sell shit. And if you do, you're not giving the money to the poor. Fuck no. You're going to hold on to that shit and probably do nothing for anyone else with it. Okay? Let's just keep it real. I mean, these Christians are so full of shit. Okay? I've never in my life met a single Christian who is a self-proclaimed Christian who ever exhibited that which Jesus instructed. He said, do this. I don't see Christians doing that. He said, do that. I don't see them doing that. He said, don't do this. They do that. Don't do that. They doing that too. Like, Christians are so full of shit. Like, you know what I mean? But yet I'm the one who's tripping for not believing their bullshit. Why? So I can be a hypocrite like you? You know what I'm saying? So I can say one thing but completely live a life antithetical to the shit that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Cussing, watching violent, gratuitous movies, pornography, being disrespectful, rude, vindictive, and spiteful, vitriolic. You know what I mean? Judgmental, hateful. Like that's what you are as a Christian. You know what I mean? Not all is, but at least you unread, ignorant, can't spell worth a fuck ass Christians. At least to you, that's who that applies. You motherfuckers who couldn't be bothered to read the fucking Bible or who try to make it seem like the slavery of the Bible isn't the same thing. Bitch, it's the same. Okay? Owning a motherfucker is owning a motherfucker is owning a motherfucker. Okay? So, but this is the bullshit you have to deal with when he said love your neighbor. There's no nuance to that. Just is what it is, right? Love your neighbor. You know what love is. You know what a neighbor is. But it's like, you can beat your slave as long as he doesn't die within a few days. Like, well, what do you mean by beat and slave? It's not the same kind of slave. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, shut the fuck up. Now, just because it's ugly and it seems a little problematic, now all of a sudden, it's like, no. The context. When I said, Jesus said, judge not that ye be not judged. I never hear, well, you didn't say that in context. It's like, why? Because you just agree with the sentiment because it makes sense on the face of it. Just like you can buy your slaves from the heathen that surrounds you. Oh, that's not what it means. It's somehow metaphor. Get the fuck out. That's what I mean. Like, Christians are so disingenuous. So disingenuous. Their arguments are full of logical fallacies. Okay. They're just fucking, not all of them. Again, I'm mostly tethering this analysis to the fucking Christians I come across on this social media app, if that's what you want to call it. So full of shit. So get the these Christians, man, I swear to God. Like, bruh. That's why I don't believe. Well, that's not why. The reason why I don't believe in your God is I'm just not convinced. But I'm not convinced because there's been no reason to be convinced. I would have more of a rational foundation if I were to believe in Santa than Jesus as some sort of divine being. Because there's significantly more evidence for a Santa Claus than there is for a Jesus today. You know what I mean? So, but I don't believe in that either. Because there's, again, not enough evidence to substantiate the claim that there's a Santa Claus, just like there's no evidence, not enough, none that would compel a skeptic into accepting the claim that there was a Jesus who was divine and performed miracles of the sort that break the fundamental laws of nature. Yeah, I'm not accepting that shit. Like, you're going to have to show me something outside of the Bible, which is why I believe that Jesus did exist at some point or other, because of the evidence that substantiated the claims that came from outside the Bible. Because the Bible is just full of claims, okay? The Bible can't substantiate itself. That's not how it works. But Christians, of course, they'll never, they just don't, that this doesn't click with them. They're like, no, the Bible is evidence. See, bro. It's like, oh God, you're so dumb. That's like saying the Harry Potter book, any claim made throughout Harry Potter is real because the book itself said it. Or anything that happened in the movie is accurate because the book said it. It's not real. It's a story, okay? What the fuck? Like, Christians. Oh God, I really pity you. Like, that's really what it is. You know what I mean? I pity you. Like, when I be seeing these comments like, Jesus loves you, man. Come back to Jesus. It's not too late. When I see shit like that, I just shake my head like, you poor thing. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's why I just like it. Like, heart, continue on. You know, I used to respond to it, but now I'm just like, they can't help themselves. They're holding on to a thread. You know what I'm saying? They want that shit to be true so bad, it's pathetic. I don't even know why they want it to be true. Like, 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 of the Christians you probably ever ran into are going to hell like a motherfucker. Get the fuck out of here. Y'all ain't doing what Jesus said. Hell nah, you ain't. Let Jesus come back right now and you got anything. You going to hell, period. Like, nope, don't try to repent now, motherfucker. What's with the shoes? Why you got an iPhone? Why you got an iPad? Why you got this shit and that shit and this shit and that shit and this shit and that shit? You know what I'm saying? Why all the makeup? Why all this? Why your hair in braids? Why you wearing mixed fabrics? Okay, why this? Why that? Straight up, y'all going to hell like a motherfucker, every one of you. Like, how you gonna be a follower of Jesus and you ain't poor? Like, Jesus, like, ain't no rich people with me, motherfucker. Like, nigga, the disciples was illiterate. They didn't even have enough money to learn to read. Like, you know what I mean? Jesus was poor, son. Straight up. Not that he had to be poor. Like, I mean, he could have made some money, I'm sure. Of course. But he was like, nah, I ain't no Nah, man, ain't the life to live. He was like, you should be struggling out here, man, suffering. Me. Somebody slap you, turn the cheek and let them slap the other one. If someone steal your jacket, give them your shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, but do you know any Christians like that? Slap a Christian right now, see what happens. You think they're just gonna be like, you missed this side? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. They're gonna be like, nah, the Bible says eye for eye. Bitch, it says that in the Old Testament. I thought we don't fuck with the Old Testament no more. Don't be bringing up Old Testament shit when we're talking about New Testament shit, okay? Anywho, I got some shorts to make. Somebody get off of here. Thanks for watching, y'all, man. I might read some more tomorrow or some shit. I'm off tomorrow, but I'm going to go in anyway. Because I need money, bro. I'm a broke bitch. Holla back. Hail Satan. Hail Satan. Out this beyond.